Unless you've been living under a rock for the past few years, you've probably heard of this watch. If you haven't, let me spoil all perceptions you have about value in the watch world. Thank me later. This is the Steeldive SD1970. It's a homage to the legendary Seiko Willard model from Apocalypse Now. It pairs the classic dive watch aesthetic with modern materials and build quality at an extremely affordable price. My first experience with the SD1970 was about 3 years back, when I got one on loan from a friend. I remember thinking it looked and felt cheap at that time. I just wasn't that impressed. This watch I have with me today feels completely different. Steeldive has listened to their customers, and they've made some great upgrades along the way. The SD1970 comes in bare bones packaging. It's a pelican style case that protects the contents well. Inside the case you'll find the watch, some documentation, and a bracelet resizing tool. This watch has a 43.8mm case, a 47.6mm lug-to-lug, a 20mm lug width, its 13.5mm thick, and size up for my 6.5-inch wrist. It weighs in at 163 grams. It also has a 200-meter water resistance rating. I purchased this watch from the official Steeldive store on AliExpress for $70 during a sale. That's right, $70. How much quality can you really expect for that kind of money? Judging from this, quite a lot. You can spot this Willard style case from a mile away. It's a unique, recognizable design, and all credit goes to Seiko for that. The case features the signature extended crown guards at the 4 o'clock position that flow into the overall case design. The top of the case and lugs are brushed, and the sides of the case are polished. There are steep curves on the side of this case that makes the watch very comfortable to wear. The side profile of the case looks nice with sharp downturn at the lugs. Overall, this feels like a very well-built case. The crown is large and seamlessly flows with the crown guards on either side of it. The knurling gives it a good grip, and it has the Steeldive logo engraved on the outside. There's also a nice cutout at the bottom of the case to give you more access to the crown. This is a screw-down crown, and that helps give the 200-meter water resistance rating. It has a strong pop when you screw it out, and there's barely any crown wobble. The crystal is slightly raised above the bezel, and it has nice beveled edges all around it. It's a flat sapphire crystal with a clear anti-reflective coating, something that I love to see on watches. It does the job really well. It eliminates most reflections and gives you a very clear view of the dial. Under that crystal, you'll find a matte black dial. It has the Steeldive logo at the top, which I'm not the biggest fan of. The printed text on the dial is very cleanly done, and I like the pop of red on the 200-meter text. The indices here are applied. They're large, legible, and filled with lume. There's also a frame date cutout at the 3 o'clock position. I was quite impressed by the finishing of the indices on the macro. I couldn't see visible imperfections, and the same applies to the hands. They look very good, featuring a brush finish flanked by polished bevels. That combination gives the hands some dimensionality, and it makes them look much more expensive than they should be. I also love the pop of red on the second hand. The SD1970 has a 120-click unidirectional bezel with a coin edge grip, which makes it very easy to turn. The bezel action is a bit light, and the clicks sound tinny, but they're consistent. It also aligns spot on at the 12 o'clock position. The bezel insert is made out of ceramic, and it has engraved 60-minute markings in white. The finishing on the bezel insert looks clean and really well done. Usually with watches below $100, lume is pretty much an afterthought. That's not the case here though. The lume on the SD1970 is the absolute star of the show. There's a thick and even application of green C3 lume on the hands and indices, and the bezel markings have a blue BGW9 lume. Seeing this for the first time in the dark literally made me stop in my tracks. I couldn't believe how good the lume was for a $70 watch. Onto the back of the watch, and you'll find a nice brush finish on the bottom of the case. The caseback has the Steeldive logo etched with a sandblasted finish. The etching did feel a bit rough, so you might want to smoothen this down if you have sensitive skin. This could have just affected my model though. Let me know in the comments if yours had the same issue. Under the caseback and powering this watch is the trusty Seiko NH35 automatic movement. The NH35 unit in my Steeldive kept excellent time. It averaged around +4 seconds per day, which is really impressive. The SD1970 has an oyster-style bracelet with brushed solid links and end links. It's held together by push pins, but the tolerance here isn't great. There's a lot of movement between the links and that makes it feel a bit cheap. The clasp is milled and features a brushed finish with the Steeldive logo etched on the outside. It closes reassuringly with a double push release and flip lock. Impressively, it has 6 micro adjustment slots. So, what are some things I like and dislike about the Steeldive SD1970? I have to start with my favorite thing about the watch, the lume. It's fantastic. It's easily the strongest and longest lasting lume of any watch in my collection. The fact that Steeldive went the extra mile with different colored lume on the bezel and dial is a very nice touch. Next, the build quality. I'm covering both the quality of materials and the actual build here. Clear AR crystal, brushed bevel hands, great lume, ceramic bezel inset, fully milled clasp, the list goes on. This watch is packed with quality materials you'd expect in a watch that costs much more than this. The bracelet is the only component that doesn't feel as high quality as the rest of the watch, but Steeldive had to cut corners somewhere. Lastly, the unbelievable value. The SD1970 can regularly be found under $100. I got this for $70 during the recent AliExpress sale. I honestly have no idea how Steeldive is making any profit from this watch. They're practically giving these away at that price. Now onto the dislikes, and I have to mention the size. There's no getting around it. This is a chunky watch. This may not be an issue for you if you have 7-inch or larger wrists, but on my 6.5-inch wrist, it just stood out a bit too much. The SKX007 at 42mm is at the limit of what I can comfortably wear, and the Steeldive makes even that watch look small. The 20mm lug width on the Steeldive actually makes the watch head look even bigger visually. Compare that to the balance the 22mm lug width brings to the SKX. Wearing the Steeldive on a rubber strap helps bring that visual half down, but not by much. Honestly, that's the only thing I dislike about this piece, and even that's entirely subjective. I really can't find anything else to complain about. I love this watch, but I just can't see myself wearing it much because of its size. I usually prefer smaller watches around the 38 to 40mm range, like the San Martin Retro Diver. So to sum up, what do I think about this watch and should you buy it? Absolutely, if you have the wrist size to support it. There's honestly nothing out there that competes with the Steeldive on a price to quality ratio. I feel like it's one of those watches that every collector has to experience at least once. The fact that Steeldive has been improving this watch without raising the price has to be commended. You rarely see that. Brands take any opportunity they can to hike up prices along with spec bumps. When I first got into watches about 5 years ago, $70 will have gotten you a watch with terrible specifications and build quality. Compare that to what you get with the SD1970 today, and it makes you realize that it's an amazing time to be a watch enthusiast. Credit to Steeldive for making a great watch that's accessible to everyone. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up to let me know, and subscribe for more watch content. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.